And now, it's time for TJwow.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Training Journal webinar. We are so pleased to be with you today. This is me, I'm your host, and I'm going to be hopefully kind of your voice if you haven't got your microphone connected, although we know some of you do. And we'll be chatting through a variety of different things around what you want to talk about. Because you know what, this is all about what you want to discuss. We've all been to conferences, training sessions, events. I don't know about you, but I always find the best bit is having a chat with somebody over a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or if I'm really honest, a glass of wine in the evening. And that's what I wanted to bring here. Maybe not so much the wine, although we do have people with toasted tea cakes. What we wanted was the conversation, because I think that's where we can take all of our learning and really get into depth with it. That's what we're focusing on today. You've got the chat window that you are using, which is absolutely brilliant. So do please keep using that, because what we're doing is having a chat through today. And Rachel says you love that J. Cross quote. Yeah, I love that too. It's very sad he's no longer with us, but he did some great work, and I think that really kind of epitomises what we're trying to achieve. At the bottom of the screen, you've got a Q&A box. Now, Phil's already started us off in there and practiced with that. So if you've got any particular questions that you want asked, please do put them in there. I promise I will see them, and we will do our absolute best to answer them, because you might want to just kind of separate that out from the chat window as we go along. If you've got a microphone working and you think, oh, I've got something to say or something to ask, you can just click the hand up icon at the top of the screen if you want to say something, or you can type it in the chat window. That's all fine. Now, you know that we're on Twitter, so you can always go to Twitter and put in #TJwow if you want to. That's our hashtag that we're using. You can go and follow us on Twitter with Training Journal, and also I'll put in the Twitter handles of our speakers in just a moment. Then you can come and look at the website for all sorts of information, including our recorded webinars. Donna, hello from sunny Bali. Oh God, we were jealous of Ian's tea cake. We were more jealous of Bali, Donna, honestly. But welcome to the session. Thank you so much for coming along. Now, I think there's been quite enough from me already. These are our fabulous speakers today. And what we are looking at are coaching and mentoring skills. And I'm just going to put in our starting discussion point. And this is really kind of a nice open question. We can interpret it in different ways. And it's up to you guys in the question panel, the Q&A pod, and also speaking up. Like, what do we want to discuss? What do we want to look at? So let's move into our main area. Let's get our webcams on so that you can start to see our speakers. Here they are in all of their glory. Now, unfortunately, we had a little bit of a technical problem with Darryl's webcam today. So unfortunately, he is going to be a lovely picture just here. Let me just move this into the corner so that we can see him properly. I mean, nobody puts Darryl in the corner usually, but unfortunately we have to do that today. And I'm trying to resize that, which is not working so well for me right now, but I'll get on to that. So these are our lovely speakers. Let's get some introductions from them first of all. So I'm going to start with Fiona, then move round to Darryl and to Madeline. So Fiona, let's get you off mute.
Hi,
and let's
can you
have
hear
a
me okay? Good. Yes, my name is Fiona and I'm a freelance learning and development consultant. Been working in learning and development for, crikey, probably about 15 years now, and I love it. I love helping people learn. I do a mixture of things. I do a lot of facilitation, coaching and mentoring, hence why I was really pleased when you asked me to get involved with this today, because I think it's definitely a very interesting topic to talk about as an L&D professional.
But we can imagine you speaking. So Darryl, let me just unmute you and let's hear a little bit from you about what is it that you do in this great and wonderful L&D world.
Thank you very much, Joe. I don't know why it is, but I can't get the thought of eating a toasted tea cake on the beach in Bali out of my head. It's stuck there at the moment, but there you go. Morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Really excited to be here this morning. I describe myself as an L&D practitioner. I work with professional membership organisations providing content and engagement advice, and linked to that, a particular interest of mine is people networking and how social science, behavioural science and data analytics might inform networking practice. I'm part of a LinkedIn group which is called Strategic Business Networking. We have over 200 members worldwide, and there's a YouTube channel of the same name. Regarding coaching or being a coach, I don't personally identify with that title, although others have very kindly referred to me in those particular terms. But I guess we might talk some more about that later. So really great to be here.
Thank you very much, Darryl. And this is why one of the reasons we want to get different speakers on these webinars is because we all bring in different kind of angles and looking at the question in different ways. So that's really great. Thank you. And Madeline, let's come to you. I've unmuted you, Madeline. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you do. Oh, no, we can't hear you, Madeline. So I think you're still muted. I've unmuted you, but maybe you have another mute button somewhere. So don't panic. You see, this is what we do when it's live. Isn't it brilliant? And I would like to say we can do it in the edit, but we just go with what we've got. How are you doing there, Madeline? Is that working now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. You see, we test all this beforehand, and then you go live and you never know what's going to happen. So Madeline, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Thank you. I describe myself as a career coach. For most of my career, I was actually working in business and then in higher education in online learning, designing learning solutions for all sorts of applications and all sorts of people. But when I was at one of my jobs at the Open University, I was involved in an exercise which involved lots of staff, and that helped me to understand, I think, the value of working one-to-one with people to shift mindsets and so on. And that's when I retrained as a coach, and I realised that I wanted to use that in my work. So I do both of those things now. I work primarily as a career coach, and I also design online learning solutions for corporate and educational clients.
Brilliant, thank you. Now, Alison, you're saying Madeline's face is blocked by the picture, so let me just make Darryl's picture a little bit smaller down in that corner. So hopefully, because everybody's screen size reorganises things in a slightly different way, so hopefully that's a little bit better for you. So thank you everybody for your introductions. Really interesting different angles and backgrounds and histories that we've got. Now in the chat window, our starter question, which is one of the essential coaching and mentoring skills that all us L&D professionals need, there's been some great conversation going on. You are fabulous, everybody. So things like reflective practice, build rapport, listening skills, active listening, being able to move people on, patience, not trying to find the solution. Now that's an interesting one, Emma. Emma, we know that your microphone is working.
Sure,
so Emma,
yeah.
Could you unmute and just tell us a bit more?
Yeah, all I'm trying to say is I'm actually
you're
studying
saying
for a
that
diploma
in
in executive coaching and mentoring at the moment.
So
but my nature is very much a fixer. And so in terms of the journey that I've been on, it's very much the trying to sit on my hands, zip my mouth, and not trying to come up with the answer, however straightforward that might seem. And so I agree totally with the attentiveness and the listening and the asking the good questions. But for me, it's also the just holding back and allowing people the space to think.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Emma. And just remember to click that mute button again. What a great example. And there was a couple of nods there. I can see Fiona was nodding, Madeline was nodding. I'm sure Darryl was too. About like, you just, we go into these things because we want to help people, but sometimes we can actually get in the way of helping people ourselves, can't we? So we've got lots of effective questioning and listening. Phil makes a really good point here, saying, I agree with on the listening front, and I broaden it out to attentiveness. What I mean by that is to give 100% of my attention to the person I'm interacting with, and I use mindfulness to help me give 100% of my attention. Really good, Phil, thank you. So loads of extra good comments there as well. Let's come back to our speakers and see from your point of view, everybody, what is your point of view in terms of those essential skills we need in L&D? So let's come to Madeline first, then Darryl, then Fiona. So Madeline, what do you see as those essential coaching and mentoring skills that we need for L&D professionals, really just broadly?
In the first meeting and in the early sessions, to open up the possibility for people to be really straightforward and to think out loud with you. And that tends to be how I describe it, as helping them, my role being to help them think out loud so that they can start to change the things that they want to change once they started to look at them a bit more deeply with someone who's independent. And I think the quality of that relationship and the openness is something which you can get to through any number of approaches, you know, whether you're a values-based coach or a strengths-based coach, or whether, like me, you're someone that says that they use what they need to use in the moment. And I think self-awareness, as somebody has already really said, is central to that. And being aware of the impact that you might have on the person in front of you, and being aware that the impact that they have on you, and being able to separate those both of those things, so that you can sit back and notice what's going on carefully, and not advise or guide without actually drawing out all the aspects of the experience from the person that you're working with.
Gosh, there's quite a few different things in there, and I was paying attention. I was just doing some technical stuff in the background. So I think some different threads of conversation there. We'll obviously pick up on some of those as we go through. Rachel has already said thinking out loud. Thanks to Madeline for that phrase. And Mary has said, yes, I do both agree. It's about client expectations. Sometimes getting to the point is valuable. And some other comments going on that are really great in the chat window. Thank you, everybody. So Darryl, let's come to you next. And
the key essential skills. I think where I'm coming from is I personally would probably benefit by taking a step back. We're talking about coaching and mentoring, and I just wonder whether we're all agreed on what we actually mean by those terms. What do we mean by coaching? What do we actually mean by mentoring? Where do those two terms overlap, and where do those two terms differ? So although I've got some thoughts, you know, and I think I've got a clear picture of what I think is coaching and mentoring, I'm really interested to hear what other people think from their own points of view.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great question. I know Fiona, you've got some thoughts on that as well. So let's come to Fiona, and also in the chat window, what is that difference between coaching and mentoring? Ruth asked a great question about that as well, so we'll come back to that, Ruth, But Fiona, what are your thoughts about those differences?
They both do overlap, like you say, because they have very similar skill sets. So I think of good questioning and listening well, listening kind of actively. Not to just what's being said, but how it's being said. Also, kind of clarifying skills, you know, summarising and reflecting. But for me, the coaching, pure coaching for me, is all about the coachee. So it's not about me at all. Whereas mentoring, sometimes I can come in a bit with my knowledge maybe or my experience of doing a role, you know. So that's, I guess, how I see it quite simply, is that coaching isn't about me at all. I just ask good questions. And mentoring is where I can come in and I can maybe give a bit of my kind of experience or expertise if it's asked for, if it's requested.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And actually, there's some similar stuff in the chat window coming through. Emma, for instance, asks, does the distinction actually matter? So that's a good question. Mary says, I feel coaching is non-directive and mentoring can have an element of advising from our experience. That's similar to what you're saying there, Fiona. And Emma says, it's something I'm struggling with. Surely it's just having a conversation. I think we're all agreed, probably, Emma, that it is. It's then about kind of how you have the conversation in a bit more detail within that. Rachel says coaching is often more career focused, except when, and of course that's when the many exceptions come into it, online research blurs the matter. Thank you, Rachel. Adrian says mentoring can be sharing own experiences to support the outcomes. Coach is more questioning, so exactly as what Fiona has described there. So thank you very much for that. James is saying it's about the level of direction implied and stuff like that. So then Ruth asks a really great question a little bit earlier in the chat window. I'll paste that in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that there is a blurring, isn't there,
Ruth
between
asks a question in the chat
two terms.
window, which is all about
I think for me
that
there can be some differences, though. The first one is
Darryl,
around
let's come to you on
time.
this one. You started that kind of conversation
Coaching,
about what
you're
are the
generally looking at a
differences.
shorter
So Darryl,
relationship,
do you
whereas if you
see
think of a
any challenge
mentor,
going between one
you know,
to the
people
other?
talk about having a
Is it
mentor for
continuum?
decades, for a
How do you see
lifetime,
that?
that kind of thing. I think there might be differences around the degree of formality. Maybe with coaching sometimes there's a bit more structure. Certainly what I associate with coaching is a contracting process that one might go through first of all, whereas with mentoring it might be more informal. And I think one or two people have sort of mentioned a difference in the chat box around focus. Maybe coaching, the focus is on development issues, maybe issues at work, whereas mentoring might be more around career and personal development. So those are the differences in my mind, but I don't put those forward as sort of exclusive.
Yes, I think it's something. Yeah. Yes, I guess most of my work is.
Thank you very much, Darryl. So Madeline, let's come to you.
And I think how I handle it is to ask permission, if you like, during a session when I'm coaching someone, to offer ideas that they might want to consider, which might be more considered mentoring. But I think one of the main things that I do, and it's something that a number of people have mentioned already, in the mentoring sense, is to connect people. So I found that I'm quite effective at connecting people into organisations, connecting them with other people I know who can help them and who they can help. And a focus of a lot of my coaching in terms of people that want to make a change in their career, make a change of direction, is to encourage them to put themselves in places where they're going to meet like-minded people that are doing the thing that they want to do, or people that they can learn from. And that's the aspect of mentoring, I think, that comes most deeply into my coaching, helping people to realise the value of connections and giving them ways, suggesting ways in which they might make those new connections themselves, and actively look for opportunities to talk to people. Sometimes it's just as simple as encouraging people to say hello in situations where they might not normally say hello to someone, and just to see what comes of that. Because to be honest, for most of the people I work with who are looking to do something new, it's through having a conversation that's unexpected but which they're ready for. It's through starting the conversation, I think, that they have found new opportunities for themselves. So it's almost by chance, but not really by chance, because they've put themselves in those situations and taken the first step. And that's an important part of mentoring, I think, to encourage people to make those first steps themselves.
Thank you very much. That really resonates with me at the moment, and probably other people are in similar situations where they haven't been ready for something, even though the opportunity is there, and then at another point they are. And I certainly feel that this year with a couple of projects that I'm working on, so that sort of personally resonates with me. Okay, so Phil, if you've got any comments on that in the chat window, please do share. And I'd like to ask our next question now, which is from Catherine Jones. Now, Catherine asked a little bit earlier on, let me just paste this again into the chat window for everybody to see. And we'll come to you, Fiona, on this one first. Catherine says, I'd like to explore how to minimise the impact of unconscious and personal bias when coaching others. And that can be a real struggle. So Fiona, let's come to you first and see what your opinions on that.
I think that's a really, really good question, like Rebecca has just said in the in the chat space. And it's one I'm very mindful of a lot. And I think there's something for me about being very reflective after I have kind of mentoring and coaching sessions. Because I think obviously we're just human beings, aren't we? We're not robots. So our kind of biases and things come into everyday life. It's something that I definitely think is something this year I'm wanting to focus more on with my skill set, to like build that, because I think, like somebody said earlier, I'm a wanting to help other people person, and so sometimes that drive can allow those biases to kind of come in. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really challenging one, because sometimes,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in part with both of you, both Fiona and you, Joe. Joe, your point, biases presumably are there for a reason. If you want to take an evolutionary standpoint, you might want to question why as human beings do we have biases? But to answer the question that's been posed, how to minimize them, and I agree, it's always a challenge, isn't it? But maybe step one is to be aware. So fairly short, succinct answer, but to be aware of them, or try and be aware of them.
Yes, I think that's an interesting one, and what you said is particularly interesting too, because you need to bring yourself into that space and into that relationship, and if you don't do that, then you're really just an automaton that's asking questions, and none of us are that. None of us want to be that. I think it is about separating what I call my stuff as a coach from your stuff as a coachee. And when you hear yourself and you hear and recognize that something is coming in which is getting in the way, it's a little bit like mindfulness, where you see it coming in, so you take it and you just put it on the shelf, and you need to park it and put it away if you think that it's getting in the way and not actually helping you develop that relationship. So it's very much about suspending judgment and setting aside any assumptions that you have. And I think as you practice being more mindful of things like that, you become more aware of what your own stuff is, and so you can park it out there a bit more easily.
I think for me, it's definitely part of, well, I say it's definitely part of my role as an L&D professional to have good coaching and mentoring skills, to be able to provide that as a learning intervention, if you like, but also when I'm having conversations with people in the business, to really explore what their needs are, because we all know that often you can get kind of brought in to solve a problem as an L&D person, but actually, if you've got a really good set of kind of questioning skills in your toolkit and you're really good at repeating, reflecting and summarising, I do think that can really help you to at least gather more information, more data to help you to support the business better.
Yeah, I think Fiona's spot on actually in drawing a distinction, and I would see it as coaching and mentoring inside of design and delivery, and then coaching and mentoring outside of design and delivery. And maybe give you an example. An example of the former, inside, I can think of a situation where I was involved in onboarding new starters and a delivery piece that I did. And there was certainly a job to be done in terms of contracting and letting them know what they could expect of me, and in turn what I could expect of them. I think there was some stuff definitely around employee engagement and getting them on track with what the organisation wanted from them. And I suppose I was also, directly or indirectly, modelling behaviour, so a kind of coaching skill, if you like. So that was inside of a particular delivery piece. Outside of design and delivery, you've got the other things that you might do, maybe a diagnostic piece, or at the end you're evaluating the training. And for me, that's much more about interaction with the key stakeholders, maybe dealing with ambiguity. I can remember working for an organisation which was definitely a matrix organisation. It was very difficult to pin down who did what and what their responsibilities were. And I think going with that was something around political awareness when you're working within an organisation in the field. So yeah, definitely agree with Fiona about the distinction between those two particular contexts.
That's a very good question. I think you go into any job, into any project, whether you're a consultant.
The window, and lots of people are agreeing with Ruth as well, says she agrees with Caroline. We have changed from being a learning and development team that just provide training courses to spending 80% of our time consulting with the business, and that questioning and listening skills are critical to this change. Now, Madeline, you've got a background in designing learning interventions as well yourself, and we were chatting just recently about the online work that you do and you've done in the past. How have you found using those coaching and or mentoring skills have been useful in the work that you've done around learning design?
That's the questioning mindset that I guess we all particularly need in order to be good at either sort of designing and delivering our work, or managing it, or leading a team of people, trying to provide whatever is necessary really to meet the needs that's there. I find that certainly, yeah, my own background is in learning design for online learning, and I go in with exactly the same mindset as I do with coaching and mentoring. It's just that the nature of the delivery is quite different. So instead of it being a face-to-face conversation, it becomes something where the understanding and the empathy and the content that you need to look at is transferred into learning activities, some of which happen online. So one needs to, how could I describe it? Design interventions that help encourage the type of thinking that you're looking for. And you may be doing it by producing certain media to make that happen. But essentially, I think it's the same thing. But I certainly think that for coaching and mentoring, those sorts of skills are enormously useful for any manager, any leader, to be honest, anyone in any role where they want to get on, whether you're looking to change or whether you're a young person just acquiring skills for the future. So being exposed to them, I think, is really important. If we can get young people exposed to these sorts of conversations, we model the types of things that they will find useful, I think, in their own working lives.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more on that. And in the chat window, there's been some similar conversation. James has said, as L&D professionals, I think coaching skills allow managers and leaders, as you were saying, to take ownership of the development of their teams and drive high performance. And that's something that's a very key thing in modern L&D departments and business. And Rebecca is agreeing, saying using coaching skills during training delivery can ensure you don't become the sage on the stage, so that adult learners feel more challenged, respected and able. And I'm going to pick up on Ian Jenner's point, actually. So Ian, I know we checked out your microphone before the session. So Ian, let's unmute you. You said a key challenge is to ensure that you help support independence. Ian, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I completely, that's just my favourite thing, because I think the more you kind of let the room like take control, if you like. So I see my role as a facilitator,
definitely still want you to
ask good questions or prompt thoughts, or
but it's a really important point, and this goes into things like digital training as well. If we're doing things online, curated content, whatever that might be, do we still need the training? And the answer is always yes, we need the L&D professional, but our skill set might change, mentoring
skills.
So thank you for that, Ian. Fiona, do you have any particular thoughts on that point that we were just talking there about not being sage on the stage, about bringing your coaching skills into your just a quick answer before we move on to some last minute questions?
I think if managers have coaching skills within their armoury amongst all of the other skills that they have, for me that is undoubtedly a good thing. The question there, thoughts on training managers as coaches. I just wonder whether we ought to be coaching managers to become coaches, and it's back to that point about modelling, really. But yeah, I think in principle it's a good thing that managers understand what it means to be a coach and the type of approach that a coach can take.
Thank you very much. Interesting stuff coming in the chat window. Madeline has said, I think manager with coaching skills rather than manager as coach. That's a good distinction.
I start talking to someone
Madeline says manager as coach has tricky aspects in terms of managing and dealing with people.
And invariably, it's an issue that really needs to be tackled by the manager. And that's where the sort of conversation needs to be. So I am wary of going in doing, with corporates, going in and sort of doing one-to-ones with tricky people, because I don't think that's what we should be doing. But I tend to move the conversation towards, well, questioning them about the wider things that are happening in the business and the expectations of people in their role, and seeing whether there's a way in which I can help them shape some sort of solution, some sort of intervention that may help perhaps the manager themselves.
And it's always that interesting problem, isn't it? Is if they're a problem person
across that part of the business, so to sort of open up the problems. But yeah, it's something I'm not very keen on.
To be the solution. And Rachel does say, oh, yeah, I am, I promise. Okay, I'll come back. Who knows?
We lost Joe. Is Joe still there?
Oh, Joe seems to have frozen, but maybe she's coming back in a second. Did people hear what I had to say, I wonder?
Okay, yeah, everyone can hear. Good.
Okay, I think Joe may. Oh, she says she's back. You're back!
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. I am back. Hooray! Can you all hear me now? Is that okay?
You worried us for a minute.
You see, I just like putting people on the spot to test out your skills. That's all it is. Oh, sorry. This is one of those challenges. Welcome back. Technology, yeah. Technology giveth and technology taketh away is what I always say. Never mind. Thank you for being with us. Now, in the very last question I was going to look at really quickly is the question, really good question from Phil. So I'm sorry, Phil, we've only got about a minute or so to focus on this one. But I've popped it into the question panel, so you should all be able to see that at the bottom of your screen. But I will also paste it into the chat panel. Really good question from Phil, focusing on emotions and all of those aspects. They're part of coaching, they're part of mentoring, they're part of facilitation. How do we work with those emotions? Now, for me, that partly goes back to those clean questions, removing myself from the situation and being able to focus on the coachee, but also the attendees in the session. But also, personally, what I've learned is that actually my reactions and my thoughts are actually quite important, because I can pick up on things and they inform my practice. So a really quick thought from Darryl, Madeline and Fiona, just a couple of words on this. And we'll pick up the chat window, then we'll go to reflection. So Darryl, any thoughts on that emotional aspect, first of all?
I think to be a good coach or mentor, you've got to be true to yourself. So I don't think there's anything wrong with presenting yourself as another human being. To be able to work with someone effectively, you have to make a connection with them. If you don't come across as human, I think it's difficult to get the connection at the right level.
Are at the centre of what we do and
Thank you
who
very
we
much,
are
Darryl. Madeline, your
with
thoughts
people
on that
when we're
one?
coaching. I think it's particularly important to be truly yourself, and it takes a while to find out who you are as a coach. I used to think I needed to be a certain sort of person that spoke in a certain sort of way. In fact, I've learned that the sort of light touch approach is who I am, and it's what I do, and that's how I work with people. So we might laugh for a few minutes every now and then and have a little joke and move on to the next thing, but actually there's a very serious intention behind it. I think the only, not the only, but one important skill is to be able to manage your emotions. So you're not just responding without thinking, you know where you are at each point in the conversation, and you may be deciding to set some things aside, to not say them, or to be courageous and put something on the table about perhaps how that person has an impact on you, which you don't do in a normal conversation, but you can do in coaching if you've prepared the person you're working with to sort of take that and know that it's coming.
Absolutely, and people in the chat window are saying things like the contracting is important in that sense. Don't shy away from it. Understand emotions exist. Work with them, not against them. Nobody wants to be coached by a robot, says Lorna, and emotions are important. There's rapport and empathy. Loads of other similar things coming through. And Darryl really likes, he's put in the chat window, it takes a while to find who you are as a coach. And I think you pick up on an important point there. I mean, there's an important point in the chat window that we mustn't get into counselling. That's a whole other skill set we're not even touching on today. But you pick up on a really important point is, you know, in any kind of relationship, professional relationship, we might find the person that's right for us. You and I, Madeline, we might work great together because you're the right coach for me. But actually, I might find your style isn't right for me. And Fiona's style is right for me. So it's about then finding that right person, which is great. And speaking of Fiona, last couple of thoughts on this topic, Fiona, before we move into reflection.
I really agree with a lot of the comments that have already been shared. I think something that I've just been thinking about is taking this kind of stuff into supervision. So, you know, after having coaching sessions, after having mentoring sessions, if I'm noticing, you know, emotions or triggers within myself, then kind of reflecting on that later on and maybe talking that through with someone else and just checking, I guess, if that's impacting positively or negatively on my practice.
That's a really good point, Fiona. Thank you. Something we haven't really talked about much here is that somebody said right at the beginning that reflection is important. I think you've brought us back round to that, Fiona. It's a really nice way to finish off. Thank you. So there's an interesting conversation going on in the chat window around, Lisa says positive emotions are important, but negative emotions mess up coaching and mentoring. Now, Phil, interestingly, has said, I disagree wholeheartedly. And Ian is saying, well, no, I'm not sure what emotions are negative. And Phil is then saying, if by negative emotions you mean anger or fear, then they're equally helpful or valid. So there's an interesting conversation going on there. And I remember from my psychology days that, you know, the whole point of things like psychotherapy was to react and think about what you're feeling and how you're reacting to a situation and bring that into a session. And Mary's saying that all emotions are important. So I'm going to pause at this point. So we're going to say goodbye to the webcam. We still have everybody here. Don't worry, they're still around. But we're going to say goodbye and come into a reflection piece. We've got 10 minutes of our session left. And what we're going to do is we're going to practice using our text tool and then have a bit of a reflection. Now, if you are on a tablet device, which I think actually nobody here is, we've lost Donna. I think she was having Wi-Fi kind of sound issues, unfortunately. So we should all be able to use our drawing tools. Have a look on the screen. What you should be able to see is a little bit like on the right, I've got an icon here. I've got the diagram of the text tool. So somebody's very quickly put hi everyone, so please put in there whatever you like. So I've put hola. I'm feeling very Spanish this morning for some reason. So please use that T text tool that you can see. It's on the left of your screen. I've just given you a picture of it on the right so that you can see what it looks like. And then go and type on the screen. We're going to use this text tool in a moment. Now, if you're thinking, oh, hang on, oh, my writing's over the top of someone, I don't know what's going on, you can use the very top tool and you can move your writing. So you can give that a quick practice if you want. Somebody's put, great session today, time is going quick, thank you. And yes, it is going very quickly. So let's go and practice using that T text tool. Somebody says, I'm in, well done. Hi everyone, lots of hellos. Now, if for some reason you just can't get this to work, don't worry, we've still got the chat window. But this is what we're looking at using for our next activity. So let's make sure that everybody has got this working and they're happy with it. Enjoyed every moment, brilliant contributions. Thank you, everybody. And some drawings going on. Bottom left, we've got quite an artist going on there, a little smiley face. So it looks like most of you have been able to give this a go. Thank you very much. Let's move into our actual question. So let's pause just a second. And the question is around your action point from today. You've just spent the last kind of 45 minutes discussing this, hopefully useful, hopefully interesting, hopefully enjoyable. Use that text tool to just share what is your action point. Now, Ben, I've just noticed you're on a tablet device, so you won't have the T text tool. You can type into the chat window if you want to, and that will work for you. You won't have the text tool the same everybody else has. So let's just take a moment, pause and reflect. What is it you're going to do more of, or differently, or start after today? So our speakers are still here. They're probably having a reflection too. Let's see what you put on that whiteboard. My pleasure, Ben. If your writing's gone over the top of somebody, don't worry, we can move those around. Well done. So let's look at some of the things you're starting to put in. I'm going to start looking at the top left. Let's move some of these things around so that we can start to see them properly. So starting at the top left, Madeline Paterson, I'd love to do more webinars. Fantastic, and thank you for sharing your information there. I will share that again at the end as well. Somebody has said underneath that, finish my assignments, my certificate with helpful resources from participants and speakers. That is the whole point of coming on here. Thank you so much. To read more into relational presence. Now that's an interesting one. So that's something that's come up today. Read more on some of the topics explored and recommended, such as heuristics that Phil shared. Thank you. Follow up the links, learn about this technology. So this is Adobe Connect specifically, but webinar or live online classroom technology. Fight harder against advising when coaching and to minimize those leading and emotion bias lead questions. Very good. Ensure I role model the behaviors and expectations with people who can influence through coaching and mentoring in the business. That's an interesting one. So thank you very much for that. Practice more active listening and parking my biases. It seems like we need to do that in our L&D roles and in coaching. More about heuristics. What have we got? I love the way I can listen to so many people at one time. If that was you that wrote that, I love the way I can listen to so many people at one time. It would be really great to just share a bit more on that. Is that about the coaching? Is that about L&D? Is that about the webinar? So just share a little bit more about that in the chat window, if you would. Articulate better to the business the difference between mentoring and coaching. Very good. Reflect upon the skills discussed and to what degree I demonstrate those skills and how effective I am. Really good point there about self-reflection and how we can improve. Think more about keeping my mouth shut. Oh, I could definitely learn about that. And moving from fixer to conscious listener. That's a lovely reflection point. I'm just moving some of these around to try and be able to see this a little bit better. Lots of really good stuff from you guys today. Thank you so much. This has developed my interest to learn more about coaching and mentoring specifically. It's a new area to me. That's absolutely great news to kind of be exposed to something new. Thank you. Use coaching more in training sessions, using mindfulness as part of the skill set. Talk to stakeholders about the value of coaching and mentoring rather than separating them, and to explore my own skill set and areas of development. Thank you, Rob. Mindful of my unconscious or personal biases before they impact my sessions, and come up with ideas on how to prevent any negative effects. Thank you. More self-reflection, always a good thing. Practice, practice, practice. More coaching, brilliant. I'm sure you'll find lots of people you can practice with. We've got our we've got Twitter, we've got our hashtag, you've got the people you've met here, we've got the Training Journal forum, for instance, that you could go and have a look at. All of these different places, as well as where you work on your own personal learning network, you can go and ask these people. Gosh, so many things. The very bottom one here is I was a bit sceptical coming in today's webinar, but actually will work with my team to use more coaching and mentoring when dealing with the business. That is music to my ears. So let's just come to our speakers. Oh, no, before I do that, for a last comment, Ben in the chat window had put minimize bias in coaching, become more conscious of the emotional context. Thank you, Ben. Gosh, let's come to Darryl, Fiona and Madeline for just a really quick last summary on those action points of what you're seeing. So Darryl, first of all, what are you thinking very quickly on all those action points from today?
Well, I think the first thing to say is it's fantastic, isn't it, that so many people have got so much out of the conversation this morning. Far too many. I mean, if I had to pick one, and this is just for the sake of picking one, I do like that phrase, parking my biases. Yeah, parking my biases. I'm going to have a think about that. Yeah, like that one.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And Fiona, just again, really quick, what are your thoughts on this?
I just think what we've explored in our hour, which has gone very quickly, just has highlighted how many uses coaching and mentoring has for an organisation, and how much of a positive impact it can have for individuals, but for teams, and then, for the organisation much wider. It just adds so much value.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Fiona. Really agree with that. And Madeline, last quick thought from you on our action points here. So Madeline, I think I muted you, so that was my fault. So let me unmute you. There we go. So Madeline, any quick thoughts on this? So it looks like we don't have Madeline. So I'm sure she's probably going to put something in the chat window. I'll put Madeline back on mute. Last knockings and we lose audio. I know Madeline had said in the chat window, let's reduce our performance anxiety when we're coaching. You are there, Madeline.
Oh, I've come back. How marvellous.
Wonderful.
What's really impressed me today is the amount of experience that we all have that we want to bring to bear on this, and the intentions that we all have to make a few changes after having connected with each other. And yeah, my hope is that we do stay connected with each other, because I'd just like to continue having these conversations. So I'd really like to connect with people on LinkedIn and on Twitter, just so that we can carry on that conversation. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Gosh, everybody, you've put so much in that chat window about great conversation, what you've learned and being connected. So thank you, all of you, for your comments on that. Thank you, everybody in the chat window, those of you that came on the microphone. It was absolutely lovely. And of course, thank you to our speakers as well. Absolutely brilliant. Now, all their information is in that link section. There's a notepad there. If you just go and copy and paste the whole of that, you can select all of that text and copy and paste it. It's got all of the links for recordings, for our next webinar, You can go to the Training Journal forum. It's got Fiona, Madeline and Darryl's information there as well that you can go and look on. So thank you so much to all of you. As I've said, it's all recorded. It's all available on our website. You can join us on Twitter, and I think some of you have, which has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you for all of your comments on Twitter, and we look forward to more of your learning as we go forward. The Training Journal forum is there as another option to stay connected, to ask questions. As Madeline says, let's link in, let's get connected in the different ways that we do and that are appropriate to you. And then it leaves me to say our next webinars. We've got the next 3 coming up. One is about conversation-led learning. This is a little bit different from our normal Training Journal discussion webinars such as today, because actually that one is the session that I delivered at the Online Educa Berlin conference back in November, and we thought we wanted to give everybody the opportunity to see that. Basically, it's about our webinars that we do, what we've learned and the successes, the failures along the way. And then the Talent and Skills Agenda, March and April, they're our normal TJwow discussion webinars. You've got all the links. Thank you so much, everybody. You've been absolutely brilliant, and thank you especially to our speakers. That is the end of our session today. The time has gone really quick, and we hope to see you again in the future. Thank you.